Okay, so this is my 1981 Pontiac Trans Am. Growing up, like my first car was a 1979 Trans Am that I built, and I ended up having to sell it at one point, and the person that I sold it to, I sold it with the agreement that they would sell it back to me, you know, in a few years. And when I came back to buy it back, they wouldn't sell it back to me, so it is what it is. This is a replica of that car. So basically, the original Trans Am that I built had the L88 hood scoop. It had a Oldsmobile 455. And what else is the same? I mean, that's really it. Those are the two things that kind of stood out about the car to me, you know, when I was a kid. But so I just, you know, I loved the car. Obviously, you know, it was my first car. I had it for a really long time. I always wanted to get it back, but like I said, you know, they wouldn't sell it back to me. So instead I just, you know, built a replica of it. When I bought this car, it was a mess. Like so I have had a bunch of these. The 79 was my first one, but after restoring it, I kind of fell in love with restoring these old second gens, and so I bought a bunch of them to just restore and sell, or to, you know, just build motors, transmissions and stuff, and, you know, sell them that way. This one definitely was in the way worse condition out of any of them that I've ever bought. Like, it was pure cancer everywhere, and it kind of, you know, like you can kind of see when you're looking at, you know, as you're going through it, when you're getting ready to buy it, and, you know, you can tell, okay, there's a lot of Bondo here, or, you know, rust or whatever, you know, you kind of see it. So, like, I mean, I picked it up, the guy that I bought it from had a lift, and we picked it up in the air and looked at it. You can see the frame was a little twisted. You could see all the Bondo, you know, in the quarters and stuff. Like, I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it ended up being. So it ended up where, you know, I had to replace pretty much every panel on here has been replaced. So we've had to do, you know, a lot of body work to the quarters. The T-tops were nasty. Like, they were rotted out, and the previous owner had just siliconed them in place and put a bunch of, like, you know, Home Depot weather stripping in there. And honestly, for the time and money that he spent on silicone and weather stripping and sealing them in there, he probably could have bought weather stripping and actually, you know, did it correctly. But, you know, whatever, to each his own. So let me show you the car. So like I said, it has an Olds 455. This actually came with the car. It was leaking from everywhere possible when I got it. So I pulled the motor out and opened it all up. It looked like it had been rebuilt not that long ago. It had Speed Pro pistons in there. I couldn't tell if they were forged or hypertectic. But like, cylinder walls and everything, you know, still looked like everything was in good condition. So I just cleaned it up, put new seals on everything, gaskets, you know, put it back together. The carburetor was destroyed, as you can see in the video where that was sent to me of the car before I purchased the car. You can see, like, you know, backfiring out of the carburetor. I got a Holley 750 double pumper on there. And then, because it's a big block, you know, it does take up a lot of room, so I got the smaller power booster just to give it, you know, a little bit more room on that side to get to spark plugs, which are already a pain in the neck because of the kind of headers that come with these. Then I got a Be Cool radiator and Be Cool fans. Yeah, and then it has a TH400 transmission in it, so I opened that up, everything looked good, so again, just resealed that. I didn't have to rebuild it. The rear end, took that out, opened it up, again, everything looked good, so we just, you know, put new seals in that and painted it and put it back up. The real work, the stuff that we had to put all the time and money into was the body. Like I said, it was destroyed. So we ended up having to replace the front bumper, the hood, which I was going to replace anyway, you know, just because I wanted the L88 style. I wanted to go with a different style. I used to have, on mine, on the 79, I had the hood latches that came, the straight like bullet design that comes up and then has the clips on it. And I wanted to go with the newer design because this is, you know, I always worried when I was a kid about, you know, one of those popping and like the hood flying up. So these are just a more, you know, updated design to keep that from happening. Yeah, so we ended up having to replace the front bumper, replace the fenders. I had to replace the firewall. All of the floorboards, the floor pans had to be replaced. All the suspension, I took out the frame, pressure washed it, sandblasted it, and it was in good condition. I mean, luckily there was no rust on it. There was a spot where it looked like somebody must have, you know, broken off a bolt they couldn't get to, and they had to like cut a little window in there. So I just, you know, patched that up. But besides that, yeah, I mean, it was actually, you know, in good condition. So cleaned it up, painted it, and then all the suspension is new. The control arms, the shocks and struts. I think I ended up getting 2-inch lowering springs, QA1 adjustable shocks in the front. What else? And then so we ended up replacing the doors because the doors were so bad that the amount of body work it would have taken would have been way more expensive than actually just buying new doors and, you know, building those. The T-tops, like I said, were completely destroyed. They were rotted. So we had to cut all that out and sand it all down and then fiberglass it in there and kind of like make the new grooves and then replace all the weather stripping. Everything inside is brand new except for the back seat. The dash I had recovered, which they did like an okay job. New carpet, new front seats, the console we just cleaned up, the back seats we just cleaned up, the back quarter trim we just painted. All the other trim is all brand new, the door panels and everything. The little door bezels, those are just cleaned up. The instrument panel and gauges, mega shifter, the B&M mega shifter, and I mean that's really it for the inside. I actually have in that box right there, I have a brand new dash from National Parts Depot, which is going to go in this thing eventually. The deck lid is new. All the spoilers are all original. The rear tail lights were just cleaned up, and we used tint spray to darken them a little bit. Rear bumpers new. I put all the window trim on, and the front one, for whatever reason, I'm having an issue with. So I got to order another set to put on there, but the rear is done. So let's lift this thing up in the air. So the wheels came with the car. We just cleaned them up, stuck them back on. The brakes are original design. You know, we just bought new calipers and pads and rotors and stuff. The steering gearbox we were able to keep and just clean up. Some of the steering linkage we reused. The coils are UMI Performance drop coils and UMI Performance, the QA1 adjustable shocks. The transmission, like it says, TH400. The headers actually came with the car. They didn't look bad. They didn't have holes in them or anything, so I ended up just wrapping them. just because the old school headers, like it was hard to find ones that had that stainless steel look. They're all painted and they all look bad. What else? So the exhaust is basically like a stock exhaust setup. And what happened is, as I was building this car and seeing how bad it was, I ended up changing my mind halfway through it. Instead of wanting to keep it, I wanted to sell it. So I was like, all right, let's start building this for somebody that's going to buy it. And instead of going crazy, with the performance stuff, I figured I would buy it, build it mild, and then that way there's room for improvement. Somebody can build it the way that they want to build it, instead of just like picking a direction and going crazy with it and limiting the amount of buyers, that are going to want that. So yeah, so we ended up going that direction. And then what ended up happening is, after I built it, I fell in love with the car, and I ended up deciding that I wanted to keep it. And then the longer I kept it, the more I wanted to go a different direction, which we'll get into later. But anyway, yeah. So, and then we got the stock style leaf springs. We replaced those. The rear shocks are also QA1 adjustables. That's what it was. It was Hotchkiss. We got Hotchkiss leaf springs, and then a Hotchkiss rear sway bar. I got a fuel tank from Holley that comes with, it's just a kit that comes with the fuel pump and sender and all that stuff. Again, I mean, the main expenditure was really just, or not even expenditure, just time was just consumed by all the body work. Man, so basically, like, anytime that I build a car, I've learned over the years that what most people do, the mistake that they make is, where they'll give up at some point, is because what they do is they get all excited about the project and they do the most exciting part first. Usually that's going to be the motor. So they get in there, they clean up the engine compartment, start doing the motor, and then it starts to set in like how much other stuff is involved in order to do the project. And they slowly, start weaning away from it, and then it's like, oh, do I really want to put all this money into it? And I've bought so many cars that the project's halfway done and they just gave up. What I've learned to do is start with the stuff that sucks the most. So start from the rear end of the car and work your way forward. So you start with the rear and you start going through all the body work and all the, cleaning and cutting and sanding and sandblasting and, all that crap. So we went through all of that first and did, the majority of the body work from the back forward. And then, about the time that we were about to lose our minds, doing floor pans and trunks and quarters, we started getting parts and doing the fun stuff. And so then, we took the rear end out, cleaned that out, put all the new suspension in, and took the engine and transmission out, cleaned those up, resealed those, and started putting that together and installing that, and then getting into the interior and doing that part. Yeah, by, doing it that way, we were able to keep focused on it. Really, I got the majority of the car done in 6 months, and then we started F-Body Garage around the time that I had just put the motor in it. All right, so today is the day. We are picking up the 81 and taking it to the hobby shop. And so there is some video after installing that I'll put in here. The rest of it is just pictures and video clips of some of the stuff that I was doing in my garage at my house. So there's not a ton of footage on this car. But the reason I'm bringing this car up now is because this is going to be a project that we're going to be starting on somewhat soon. We're starting to get to the end of the 01 Trans Am, where the next thing we have to do to that is I got a F1A94 procharger, and currently there's a D1SC in it. We're going to put that on. We're going to change it to E85. So we're going to change the fuel system and go to Holley Terminator X to control it. So that's somewhat of a large project. That'll probably be a couple month long project. And then the 87 Trans Am behind me, we're waiting on the Terminator X ECU was defective. For some reason, there's no 5-volt reference signal coming out of it. I went over it with the Holley tech over the phone for like an hour, running all the wires and testing everything, running everything to the battery and ground, and back probing to the unit. And he finally just said, we've tested everything. It is not producing a 5-volt signal, so send it back to us and we will fix it, send it back to you, or send you another one. But they said it's going to be a couple weeks, before we even hear back from them. So this is on hold right now. But once we get the ECU anyway, it's a matter of sticking the ECU in, starting it up, because it's ready at this point to start. And then at least it's drivable back and forth, and we can put this on hold, because the next part of this is going to be probably sending it to a body shop. Either that, or I don't know. I mean, we really need to go through all the panels and look at them. It was in really good condition, so I think we may be able to just do some of this stuff ourselves. We may not have to get into deep body work, is what I'm saying. Like, I think we can probably end up just, buying a couple panels, buying weather stripping, putting this thing back together, and wrapping it instead of painting it, because I did go through and paint all the jams, cut in everything so that it would just make it way easier for whoever ends up painting it, or for whoever wraps it, so everything kind of looks like it's supposed to be in there. This, again, once we start it up, it's started up. The next part of this is really like a restoration project. So we got to figure out when, what direction we're going to go with that, and how long that's going to take, because that part of it is really time consuming, and it's not that exciting to watch, so we gotta figure that in. Yeah, and then Ben's 02 Trans Am, the red Trans Am. So when we went to the dyno, Jeff from Jeff's Tuning and Performance went through the tune and said that the intake manifold is really restrictive, so we need to change that, and the fuel system is at its limit. So we're going to have to change that. So that's something we're going to be working on in the future too. But I literally have a 408 crate motor sitting here ready to go in this thing. And I'm kind of at a point where, like I said, this is going to be down for a couple weeks. The other projects, the 01 Trans Am, the thing is, we built that Trans Am, we never went to the track, because we've just had all these projects that have been on top of each other, people waiting, to get these cars done, and so I ended up pushing more into that. But we really need to take the 01 to the track and see the fruits of our labor and figure out what it runs, what we need to change, what adjustments we need to make. And that way, when we put the F1A94 in there in the new system, we can have some realistic comparison changes, so we know, by doing this, we netted this. I'm kind of in limbo trying to figure out what it is that we want to do next. Because if we get into the 81, that's a major change. That's a major project, because we have to put the 408 in, but then we have to, buy a bunch of stuff. We're going to have to put Holley Terminator X in there. We're going to have to change the entire fuel system, the exhaust, get a new converter for the transmission, where we're either going to, I have a TH400 and I have a 4L80E. The TH400 is in there right now. The 4L80E is laying on the floor. So I have to decide which direction I want to go with that. The rear end is a stock rear end, so that either needs to be rebuilt or replaced. Probably replaced because of the amount of power that we'll end up putting down with this thing. So yeah, we'll probably have to get a new rear end. And then the dash. So I have the brand new dash that we're going to replace from National Parts Depot. And then we're going to build that out with the Terminator X, the Pro Dash that they have, probably the 6.86, or I don't know. We'll see what they have. All these like cut out instrument cluster panels that you can, put different size dashes in there. So we'll see, what size dash we can fit. But yeah, it's a pretty large project to get into. It's going to be pretty time consuming. So I put out a post on the YouTube channel to see which direction you guys are more interested in me going in. If you'd rather me continue with the 3rd gen, or start the project on the 2nd gen, or continue working on the 01. One other thing that I should mention about the 81 is that I still haven't completely decided what we want to do for forced induction. So it is an 81 Trans Am, which obviously would have been a turbo Trans Am. So there is part of me that would like to twin turbo it just because it's an 81. I am going to have an extra D1SC procharger laying around once we do the F1A94 on the 01. So that's something I could put in there as well. So I'm kind of interested in seeing, what you guys think, which direction you think we should go with that.